But, like I said, it happens, and hopefully some kids can learn from it, but just don't get caught.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht, for part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me today, it's a special podcast. I've got my friend Krysten Peek of Yahoo Sports on the show. You can find her at Yahoo Sports. Also listen to her podcast, On the Clock. You can also find it on YouTube. Krysten, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Like this is, I know the NBA finals are going on, but to me it's draft season.
Yes.
And we're a little over 2 weeks away, and I'm so excited. This is like my favorite time of the year. It's like Christmas.
It is. It's like Christmas in that there are surprises almost every day. There are lots of rumors that you have to sift through them. Is this true? Is this not true? And one of them is Bilal Coulibaly. Am I saying it right?
Bilal Coulibaly. Yes, you said the last name correctly. Yes.
Okay, good. So Jonathan Wasserman said last week that he has a promise in the lottery.
I believe it.
So, and when the word promise is said, many people think first Thunder. Okay. And the Thunder have a pick in the lottery. Do you not think so? What do you?
I know. Okay. If there is a team that holds their cards close to their chest, nobody holds their cards closer than Sam Presti.
Agreed.
So even if Bilal did have a promise, I don't think it came straight from the mouth of Sam Presti or anybody in that organization. I could understand, look, we really like you. If you're there, we might be willing, or we might be targeting you. I could see those conversations not necessarily happening with Bilal right now because he's in the middle of the playoffs, but with his agents, who, by the way, he shares an agent with Victor Wembanyama.
Yep.
So I don't like, when I hear the word promise, I know teams are thought to throw that out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Thunder are one of those teams that say, hey, we're going to promise you this.
Yeah.
They could say, we really like you. You might be on a short list of players we're targeting, but and maybe that is, interpreted as a good sign and a promise, I guess.
Yeah. I tend to be very skeptical about any reports that involve the Thunder around this time of year, because I almost think that they want people to believe things that are not true.
Exactly.
What they want in the NBA draft. There's lots of evidence of that in the past, of people thought that they were for sure going to draft certain players. And then, barely anybody thought Josh Giddey was going to the Thunder at 6 a couple of years ago.
Yes.
James Bouknight was the guy that everyone was just kind of penciling him in.
Right.
And that was not the guy. So
I would even say Jalen Williams last year.
Yeah, definitely. That was a surprise.
I think it was a surprise to Jalen too. I spoke to him the day before the draft last year. I went to this event, and he was there at the same event. It was like a press event, and it was Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jaden Hardy was there. It was the clutch thing, and then Jalen was there, just like Jalen Williams was here, just hanging out. So I said, "How are you feeling heading tomorrow?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm more worried about if my finals went through and I'm cleared to graduate." I was like, bro, you're about to be an NBA player. But I was like, do you have any idea where you're going? And he goes, I think somewhere in the first round. He had no clue. He had no idea that he was going to be drafted so high.
Yeah, that he's going to be a lottery pick.
Yeah, exactly.
You get to know these players pretty well. I think that's one edge that you have over a lot of people. Tell us what you know about the guys that are on the Thunder. You have any fun stories about just interactions? Because, these are a lot of really good guys, easy to interact with guys. We got any stories about any of these fellas?
What's so funny is I saw Josh Giddey at All-Star Weekend, and he came by to do an interview. And when I first got to know Josh, it was I lived in Australia. I lived in Sydney for 2 years. So immediately, we connected on that. And I was like, oh, have you had to teach any of your teammates some slang, some Aussie slang, like brekkie, Sonny, how you going, that sort of thing. And he's just like, yeah, a little. So then his agent is there with him this time around in Salt Lake City. And me and Giddy are just chopping it up. And I was like, oh, don't you miss chicken salt and like just the chicken shop at the end of the road? And Eddie goes, and then his agent goes, he's like, hang on. He goes, what do you do? Nobody just talks about, like, nobody in America just says stuff like that.
Yeah.
I lived in the eastern suburbs in Sydney for a couple of years, about 10 years ago. And he goes, where'd you live? Whereabouts in the eastern suburbs? And I said, Bellevue Hill off Birriga Road. Turns out me and his agent lived like 4 houses down from
No way.
and Josh was just sitting there and he's just like, he's like, wow, KP, you really know everyone. And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know that I knew this about your agent, but it's like little intricacies like that. I remember Chet's dad once showed me a photo of him and Jalen Suggs, who obviously are really close, being from the same area in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
But he showed me a photo of Jalen and Chet in 5th grade, and they were the same exact height.
Wow. That is bizarre.
No, I know. And then Chet shot up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's kind of crazy.
And then the fact that like Chet, Jalen, AZ Fudd, and Paige Beckers, AZ and Paige, stars at UConn, are like this quad of like best friends. I mean, I remember seeing a video and they're like playing Uno and AZ's telling Chet to shut up as she's like trying to explain the different rules that they're doing. Like it's little moments like that I see over the years, and I see the relationships develop, that I think is like a great glimpse as to who these players are off the court.
Yeah.
And it humanizes them for fans.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorite things that you do, is humanize these guys.
Yeah.
Not everybody's very good at it, but I think that you've, through the years, have been really good at that.
Well, yeah, they see me in the gym from the time they're 14, 15, and then all the way to the NBA draft. And it's just like, I mean, I like with Zion Williamson, I remember being in South Carolina in a small gym, like a back gym with no AC when he was 15 years old. And it's just like, nobody else is here except me, my dumbass, and like 2 other, like basketball people that have no life and like are like, yeah, we'll come see this kid.
Well, they remember you from a young age.
Oh, yeah, 100. Like on draft night, Zion's mom and stepdad, they said, hey, we really appreciate you being here. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is your night. Like, what do you mean me being here? Like, you've been there from the beginning. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but like, please just enjoy. I'm happy to be here too, but like, this is y'all's night, please.
Tell us what your expectations for Chet are going into what is year 1, but is really year 2.
Right. Okay. Can I just say, like, my favorite budding rivalry is happening.
Yeah.
And that's San Antonio versus OKC.
Yeah.
With Chet versus Victor, and especially if OKC takes Bilal Coulibaly at 12, because then you got an added component to that where it's like, okay, we've got your old teammate that you may or may not win a Pro A championship with, but you definitely made the finals for the first time in the history of that program. So you got that component to it. You have the U19s where, Victor was by far the better prospect on the court, playing 2 years younger, but he fouled out in the 4th, and Chet got the win and got the MVP because of the win.
Yep.
And Chet's a little salty. I'll tell you why. Because last year, I asked him, we're doing a pre-draft interview, and I said, I'm asking him like, oh, you're being so secretive, who you're working out with. This feels like recruiting again, all over, blah, blah. And then I said, okay, there's a player coming up next year that I know and that you've played against. What is your scouting report on Victor Wembanyama and what makes him special? And Chet goes, I'm not telling you what his scouting report is. I'm going to have to play him in a year. Why would I tell you what he's good at? I'm not revealing that. And I'm like, oh, okay. It was like, so it was just like a fun little question, like, oh, what's his scouting report? His 8-foot wingspan? Ugh. But the fact that Chet sat out this whole year, that he too is now going to be up for all the rookie awards that Victor is up for.
Yep.
I mean, they're 2, anomalies in terms of the game, and we don't necessarily even know what Chet's going to be this year. But to see the two of them kind of come up in the NBA together is going to be fantastic and a lot of fun, pending if they both stay healthy.
Yep. Yeah, I think the NBA would be pretty foolish to not have that be one of their marquee matchups within the first week.
Absolutely.
The NBA starting. Like,
yes.
We got to have Chet versus Wemby.
Yes.
There somehow. Okay, tell us more about Bilal Coulibaly's game. Like why he's rising, what's going on here. Several weeks ago, it was like you heard his name at maybe
first round,
fringe first round. It's like, okay, that's cool. You know, Thunder have the 37th pick. Like maybe he could be there. And it's like, no, like he's definitely not going to be there.
Right. I know. It's so funny because I've done a few of the broadcasts on the NBA app doing color commentary with Kevin Dana. And I'm actually doing the first game of the finals this Saturday as well.
Oh, cool.
But Kevin, I remember Kevin asking me in the middle or in the, beginning of the season, because remember, Bilal was there in October when it was the Victor Scoot show and nobody paid any attention. He disappeared. He didn't log a lot of minutes. I mean, no one really knew who he was except maybe the NBA scouts who saw him play. Like he had 25 points when Sierra Canyon came over to France and played the U18 team. And he was pretty electric there. But mind you, that's playing against high school players. That wasn't necessarily what we were seeing in the Pro A division. So with Bilal, it was like a slow. It was like it's like when you throw meat in a crock pot and it just marinates over time. It gets better with time. That's what happened with him. And I remember Vincent Collet, he said, we've just had to be patient. We've had to be patient with him. He's had to learn to adjust to it. And it's like, once the regular season ended and the playoffs started, I remember that first game against Cholet, like he was a completely different player, coming in from the weak side rebound, using his 7'3" wingspan and athleticism to get those putback dunks. He's now like added that to his bag. Like it's something normal he's been doing all season. Newsflash, it is not. So the fact that he's just like, he's growing confidently as a player. He's only 18 years old. He's one of the youngest players in this draft class. Yes. And, what do NBA teams, I mean, I don't know any NBA team that loves more than upside. They prioritize upside and youth, because they want to get their hands on them and mold them into their program and get their weight training staff with them, get their system kind of ingrained in their head and get rid of those bad habits that a lot of young players have coming into the league. So that's why we're seeing Bilal Coulibaly rise. I mean, this is a kid, he averaged 5 points and 3 rebounds in the regular season. Yeah. And last year he was the high scorer, or yesterday, to go to the finals. He's the high scorer for the Mets 92. I think it was 16 points, 4 assists and 2 steals, instrumental in that 2-point win when kind of Victor was struggling from the field.
Yeah. Is there like a comp, or can you just kind of outline?
Oh man, a comp. I haven't even. Gosh, what would his comp be? That's a good question. Like I think in person he is longer than you expect. And I mean, if you look at the draft class last year for OKC, it's very evident that Sam Presti and his staff value long, versatile players with upside that can be plugged and placed alongside Josh Giddey and Shea, and that are menaces on defense, which Bilal kind of fits that mold. And gosh, what is his comp? I'm gonna have to think about this. I might have to get back to you on that.
Yanni in the chat says Mikal Bridges.
Maybe. I could see the ceiling being Mikal. Yeah. There's a little bit of similarities between
that kind of wing, I guess.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like that. I mean, Mikal Bridges would be unbelievable.
Right.
We'll get at 12.
Right.
But like that kind of like complementary wing.
Yes.
Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you could see why teams would be interested in players like that. Like those are some of the most valuable pieces. What's his passing game like, and what's his like decision-making game like?
Okay, that's where the youth comes in, because there are times where he is a little turnover prone. It's not, I mean, you're not like chewing your fingernails watching this kid play, thinking like, okay, he's going to dribble for 15 seconds before he makes a bad pass or anything like that. But there are some, I mean, just simple mistakes. Like he gets ahead of himself, especially in transition, in the not the transition where it's like they have the advantage, but when they're pushing the ball up and he might force the pass when he doesn't necessarily have to. So it's like little things that you see in youth a lot, but nothing like blaring where it's like, okay, he's a bad decision maker. He's a better catch and shooter, like from 3-point range than he is off the dribble. Okay. So that's another thing to kind of watch for. And in terms of his development, especially in the pick and roll situation, where if he has the ball in his hands, he's probably not looking to shoot off that option and more looking to pass. And I think, you know, the other thing about Coulibaly that's very appealing to Thunder fans is like, you know, you could just swap out Chet with Victor and seeing their chemistry and what we're seeing over in France. And knowing that Chet, I mean, he's not Victor Wembanyama, but obviously he's that versatile center / wing that we're seeing from Victor. And so you're thinking, okay, Coulibaly already knows how to play with a player similar to Chet. It makes sense to kind of plug him into a similar situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Thunder have such a great developmental system, and they have a coach that just like breathes development all the time. And so bringing a guy like that has a higher ceiling makes some sense rather than going for somebody that's maybe more ready-made with a lower ceiling. So I don't know what I believe about any of this because I just don't know what I believe about anything reported about the Thunder in the draft.
Right.
Just because there's nobody talking. But we'll see. He's an interesting prospect that's been kind of thrown in the middle.
He is the buzziest prospect now in the draft. 100%.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay, we're going to do a draft battle. I did this with Coach Spins on the OKC Dream Team show. So if you want to listen to that, you can go to our Patreon page. But Chris and I are going to do this today. It's draft battles. Draft battle number 1. Amen and Asar Thompson. So the rules are,
my gosh. Okay.
Not in a vacuum, but for the Thunder. For this Thunder team, who would you rather have? Amen or Asar Thompson?
Asar for the Thunder, for sure. Okay. And I'll tell you why. He's more of a plug and play in the wing because you got to remember, like, these two have grown up their entire lives playing with each other. I mean, they were on separate teams their first season at OTE, but then, you know, rejoined for their last season before they're going to go their separate ways in the NBA. But Amen has always been the primary ball handler. He's always been the point. Asar has been the complementary piece. Yep. And so that's why, you know, you see on the draft boards, like, teams specifically are favoring Amen because of his playmaking ability and his high IQ, just reading the different defenses. But Asar, I mean, has showed improvement in his 3-point jump shot. He is, I think, the best chase down blocker and guard in this class. I mean, and it's so funny. I asked both of them. I was over in Serbia when they were playing in Belgrade this past September for their Euro trip. And I asked both of them, I was like, Asar, you were the best chase down blocker I've seen guard wise in this class. And I said, Amen, how come you don't do that? And he goes, because I don't want to jump and not know where I'm not coming down. Like, you go up, there's no guarantee that you're going to come down the way that you want to. And he goes, he's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And Asar goes, he's like, your timing's off, bro. Like, you just don't know how to do it. Like, don't make an excuse that you're worried about your safety. You just don't know how to do it. And there was this like brother rivalry, but I mean, they are so similar. Like, I remember an NBA scout said to me, I'm like, who do you like better, Amen or Asar? And he goes, I can't tell the difference, to be honest. Like, that's how similar they are. And I think they're both going to surprise a lot of people in the league. I think everybody is, oh, Victor. Oh, Scoot Henderson. Oh, yeah. Victor Scoot. And the Twins are just sitting there like, we're good. We're ready to like be all-stars and prove everyone wrong. So I'm big fans of both their games. But Asar would fit better for the Thunder.
You think they both have all-star upside?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Draft battle number 2. Jarris Walker versus Taylor Hendricks.
Ooh. Taylor Hendricks.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Because we're going based off what I just said of what the organization did last year. plug and play, versatile wings that can play defense and play alongside your two budding backcourt stars.
Yeah.
But okay. I love Jairus, and has the most NBA ready body in this. And he's a unit. He is a unit.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you love about Hendricks?
I love that, like, he's one of those players, again, that we didn't hear a lot about until about midway through the college season. Mm-hmm. And there's one of two things that usually happens when you start to get all that attention. You either buckle and you kind of like, oh, you're still there, and we see the upside, but we're not really sure what he's going to be as a pro. Or you rise to the occasion and you completely dominate. And look, I understand that UCF is not a Power 5 conference,
right?
But it should not take away about what he was able to do there in terms of like his 3-point shooting, his mechanics, his decision-making. Not only that, but his defense. Like, he's one of the best rebounders, with his size and the way he just like uses his body strategically, not trying to like bully his way in. Yeah. He has a natural feel for, where the flow of the defense and where the ball is going to go. And he puts himself in a favorable position to get the rebound.
Yeah. And just the shooting. That's where I'm like, I can see how he'd fit in. Now, my quibble with Taylor Hendricks has always been the Thunder. They like size for position, but they also like guys that can make decisions with the ball. What do you think about his ability to make decisions with the ball?
I haven't seen enough of it because that was not the system that he was put in place at UCF. Yeah. And then also in high school, he was playing alongside Dylan Mitchell and Bryce Sensabaugh, who, kind of overshadowed him in terms of, not only ball touches and possessions, which is why everybody in the high school scene kind of overlooked him because he didn't get a lot of touches and just kind of like, sat back with he's a twin too. He is a twin brother.
Does he play?
Yeah. He was at UCF as well.
Okay.
So that's why, like, I'm an identical twin. So like this draft specifically is like, oh my gosh, we got a Men and a Star. We've got Taylor and his brother. I'm all about this draft.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You getting any twin hijinks growing up?
Of course. Give
me your best twin story.
The best one. So, shocker to no one, my sister is not in basketball. She was actually a very good student and a biology teacher after all was said and done. Now she's like a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids. I have a dog, Gary, and I live and breathe basketball. We're complete opposites. So in high school, I did this twice. Like, she's so nice. She's super, super nice and super shy. And when she wanted to break up with her boyfriend, she didn't know how to do it. Like, she would just let it drag on. So I was like, Lisa, okay, I got this. And so the first guy, his name was Blake. And he's like, oh, let's go to the movies. I was like, okay, come pick me up. And it was super dark outside. So I get in the car and he's like, oh, you seem different. I was like, oh, there's something really that I want to tell you before we go to the movies. I was like, I don't think this is going to work out anymore. And then I just got out of the car and went in the house. And I was like, it's done. It's done. You broke up with him.
That is an amazing thing to have in your back pocket as a teenager. Is just your twin to break up.
You know what else we do? We still do this to this day. Okay. She has season passes to Disneyland. And, if I go with her family, I don't want to pay $160.
No way.
So she goes in with the family. Her husband comes out, gets stamped with her ID and pass. And then I walk in, and now they have to do the thumb thing.
Yeah.
And so the people at the turnstile, I'm like doing the thumb, and they're like, and I was like, well, this is clearly me. And they're like, yeah, that is clearly you. And then they just let me in.
That rules. That is amazing.
So,
I want a twin so bad now. You're left out of the twin story. No, that's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, let's go to draft battle number 3.
Okay.
Cam Whitmore versus Grady Dick.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this might be controversial. I'm going to say Cam Whitmore.
Okay.
Only because at 12, if Cam Whitmore is still there, it now becomes we take best available prospect.
It's like value play.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's a bigger guard. Again, you can plug him in anywhere around the perimeter, and he's a great facilitator.
Talk me into Cam Whitmore as a Thunder guy. I have not been sold on him as a Thunder guy, but talk me into him. Just talk me into the player, and then we can talk about how he'd fit on the Thunder.
Okay, well, I would just like to scrap his entire year at Villanova.
Okay.
I think he went in for Jay Wright, and then when he found out Jay was retiring, then he's like, well, might as well just stay and make this work. It didn't work. They lost a lot of games. He had an injury. But prior to that, I don't know if you watched any of the McDonald's All-American game, or also when he was with the U18 FIBA America team. They went down to Mexico, and he was playing with Anthony Black, Khalil Ware, Gigi Jackson was on that team. Who were the other guards? Like, I think Keontae George was on that team. And he was the high scorer every single game. He won the MVP. He completely dominated every aspect of the game, whether that because mind you, like, he doesn't need the ball in his hands to score and be productive, or not to score. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to be productive offensively.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to be that guard that, has control and kind of turn the corner and make decisions on himself, whether that's a mid-range game or dumping it to, someone else when the defensive collapse. But I saw a completely different player that his game would translate more prior to his year at Villanova. And then Villanova, we just saw glimpses of it.
Okay. I like that, because when I watched the Villanova stuff, there's a lot of things I was like, yeah, I just don't know that this would work.
Right. I would scrap Villanova.
Okay. That's a very interesting perspective.
Yes.
Draft battle number 4. Cason Wallace versus Anthony Black.
Anthony Black.
Okay. I've been an Anthony Black guy since day one, since I watched him play his first couple of games at Arkansas.
Yes.
I think he's awesome. Please talk to me about Anthony Black.
I can't believe more people aren't talking about him as a passer. And, you go back and you watch some of his games, and I think he was one of the best passers in college basketball.
Yeah.
And not only that, but defensively, his length and the way he can get out and contest shots, he's not blocking a lot of them, but he's altering a lot of shots defensively. So you've got that length, you've got that size, you've got that court vision, you've got the playmaking. He's unselfish. He's a great teammate. The only thing he's lacking is his outside shooting, which I'm not even worried about, because he loves to stay in the gym. He's a hard worker, and he is going to have a very long career in the NBA.
Yeah. I'm a big Anthony Black fan too. I think
he's not going to be there at 12. I think he's off the board at 6.
Is he worth trading up for?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
Just because, you look at this draft, especially particularly towards the top of the lottery and even the mid lottery, and there are a lot of guards and a lot of interchangeable, guards, either at that 1 or 2 position that have skill and length and size. And so this isn't like a Scoot Henderson sort of situation where if you really, really want Scoot, then you're going to have to make a move to trade up for him, because he is not going to be there past 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're OKC, is there a player that you would be willing to trade up for?
I don't think they need to. I think it's more just looking for the pieces to complement what they're already building there. Mind you, they can, if they really do want Anthony Black, they have 30 some odd trade or picks in their bag.
4 next year is kind of why I think that it's possible, is that they have
it is possible
up to 4 next year, and right now they have 1 roster spot, and they're
right,
and they like a lot of the guys that they have, and so creating 4 roster spots will be really difficult.
Right. But they might be holding that, and this is kind of an unfair thing for other teams, because you can say, oh, we have 4 picks next year. Well, next year's draft is kind of falls off a little bit, and everyone knows it. All the teams know it. So if you're Orlando sitting at 6 and they really like AB, and you're Sam Presti and OKC, and you're like, okay, we're going to throw in this, and this player, and then all these picks for the 6th position. It's going to be a hard sell. Would they do it? Possibly. But just looking at next year and what's available. I was at Hoop Summit. I'm sitting there. Usually I get at least 1 overall, like, okay, this kid's going to be the number one pick in the future draft. I asked several NBA scouts, I'm like, hey, if you guys had the number one pick next year, who would you take? And the guys, it's Matas Brazelis, who's going to the G League Ignite. He did nothing at McDonald's except had an awesome dunk, the best dunk in the dunk contest. It's also Thierry Dunlin, who is also, he's from Africa. He's also going to the G League Ignite. I think Trevin Brazell from Arkansas could be up there, but there's no clear-cut number one player. So everyone's like,
yeah,
you know. So is it worth taking 4 picks for a draft that has a lot of question marks throughout the entire way? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Draft battle number 5: Jordan Hawkins versus Kobe Buffkin.
Ooh, Jordan Hawkins.
Okay.
That kid has never seen a shot he doesn't like. He is a shooter. And I talked to a few college coaches just in background on Jordan, and they said the way he alters the game, the most effective way that he alters the game and why UConn was so successful is he moves so well off the ball that it distracts the defense, where you always have to have at least 1 or 2 people. Okay, where is he? Because if he gets a split second, he's letting that fly. So having that attention on one player, a weapon specifically, where it's like, okay, we got to know where Hawkins is. We got to know. And then that opens up the spacing for other players to make plays is super valuable. And, you know, he would fit right in.
Yeah. Thoughts on his defense and how that will translate?
I mean, he's not like a great defender, but he's also not like horrible. He doesn't have, there are some other guards with length and size who can shoot in this draft. I won't name them specifically, but they have like 0 lateral quickness or athleticism. So I would say that's like a glaring problem. I don't see that with Jordan. Like when I stop and actually, does he get beat sometimes? Yes. Is he smaller at the guard position? Yes. But it doesn't trouble me that much. I don't know.
Yeah. And the Thunder are going to have to address shooting at some point, whether that be through the draft or through trade or free agency. You know, they picked up Isaiah Joe in free agency right before the season last October, and he's kind of filled a similar role to what Hawkins could be. But, you know, if you have all these playmakers, you really can never have enough shooters around them. So, yeah, I think he's super interesting. I'm a big Buffkin guy, though.
I love Kobe, too.
What do you know about him personally?
So Kobe, so he came in with Frankie Collins, who is now at Arizona State. The two of them, you know, kind of had, they both struggled their freshman year, didn't see a lot of playing time. And then when Frankie decided to leave, that's kind of when, you know, Kobe felt like, okay, this is now my time. Like I need to show that I can have the ball in my hands. I can make plays. And I really credit a lot of Jet Howard's success to Kobe and the way he was able to get on the ball, you know, in different situations and different scenarios. So when you have a player like that, who's still young and makes other players around them better, to me, that's like, I mean, that's a dream for any sort of NBA franchise or head coach. I mean, off the court, no, I won't even go into that. He's a good kid. He's a good kid.
Okay.
I'm like,
what are you gonna say now?
He's a great kid.
Okay.
I'll tell you offline.
Okay. Next draft battle. Bilal Coulibaly, who we've already talked about a lot, and Rayon Rupert.
I don't know a lot about Rayon other than like he has a lot of upside. You know, what's so funny with the NBL guys is like, I don't see a lot of them play. Like with Rayon, like I haven't seen enough growth, but they also don't play a ton of games over there. And so it's hard to kind of get a feel for like, who did the Thunder take last year from the New Zealand kid? Yeah. And I was like, I wasn't super high on him then. I mean, I understand it's like a draft and stash situation. And with Rayon, I think that's good. It's going to be the same thing, but I'd take Coulibaly every single time.
Okay. Next draft battle, Leonard Miller versus Derek Lively.
I was waiting for you to bring up Derek's name.
Yeah.
I like Derek, and I've heard his name with the Thunder, just little chirpings.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, again, like scrap the season you saw of Cam Whitmore at Villanova, I would say the exact same thing about Derek Lively at Duke.
Okay.
I thought the system did not cater to him. I thought playing alongside Kyle Filipowski hurt him in the long run. I thought Jeremy Roach trying to make every single play, every single possession, and not allowing him to feel comfortable in any sort of pick and pop situation really hurt him, and it hurt his development as a player. And now we're seeing, like at his pro day for Clutch Sports, he shot the ball extremely well from 3-point line. He's showing more of a motor. He's obviously a great rim protector and rebounder. So I think that shows upside and development just in that small time from playing at Duke to now, and how much improvement he's made has really, really helped his draft stock. And I could see him sliding alongside, Chet, and also who's the other guy you guys have? Pokusevski.
Poku, yeah.
Yeah, Poku.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I love that. I love that the Thunder there's no rule book. They're like, we are just going to do whatever we want. And if we feel like this person is going to positively impact our program and help us win games, and they have the right attitude, they're good in the locker room, and they gel with what we're trying to do here and buy into it, then come on board. We don't care if he's 7'2" and we already have 2 of those. Like, what are you going to bring differently? Okay, you showed improvement in 3-point jump shot. Once you get your confidence up, is that something that's going to be in your bag and something that you can add to? Great. Like, there's like no, it's like the Wild Wild West. There is no rules with the Thunder, and I kind of love it. So I would take Derek.
Okay. What do you think about Leonard Miller?
I think he's, I mean, obviously he's more of a wing.
Yeah.
And I thought he was solid in the G League. But I also think, like I mentioned with Kobe Buffkin, and how, he helped Jet Howard and become, probably a first-round draft pick. I would say Scoot Henderson has done the same favorable thing for Leonard Miller. Now, I know Scoot had his injuries and then he shut it down in March. But in that time frame, when the two of them did play on the court together, I mean, Leonard really came alive, and was averaging, I think, a double-double, and just has that like length and athleticism that you want in that wing position.
Yeah, I think he is interesting too. There's just a lot of other players that I think I like better at 12.
Yes.
Okay, draft battle number 8. Maxwell Lewis versus Sidi Sissoko.
Ooh, these are different. I just spent a week, before the draft combine, I spent a week in Vegas with Max at Impact with his trainer, Joe Abunassar. Cool. And my one thing, again, that was, I saw Max a few times in person during the season at Pepperdine. Pepperdine was horrible. They only won 9 games. Yeah. And so a lot has to be said. Okay, if you are a lottery pick, if you're a first-round pick, why did you guys only win 9 games? Like, the hell, you know? So I know he's going to have to answer to that when he interviews with teams. But my biggest knock on him during the season was like, oh my gosh, he's undersized. Mind you, like, he's too skinny. He's too little. And you saw that, like, he was getting pushed around, and, every time he tried to maneuver to the basket, like, he was getting knocked around. I walk into Impact and I'm like, oh my God, he had added 14 pounds of muscle. Wow. He looked great. I mean, he's one of the best shooters in this draft class as a guard position. I'd put him right behind probably Jordan Hawkins as like a shooter with the ball in his hands. And, like, defensively, he was non-existent at Pepperdine, and I understand that. But in the 3-on-3 battles that I saw, like, he was getting deflections. He was using his, he's got a 7'1" wingspan. Yeah. So he's got that length. So it might just be one of those situations at Pepperdine where it was just a bad fit and there was no room for growth, whether that was from the coaching staff, kind of putting him in like a bubble or what. But the fact that he's working out every day with Joe Abunassar, who has been credited for, training Tyrese Halliburton, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Kyle Lowry, most recently Josh Green, Zaire Williams, and Blake Wesley, who was drafted by the Spurs last year. I mean, it's not easy training with Joe, and the fact that Max is there doing it, like I give him props.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really interesting to me. It's just like a multi-skilled guy. The Thunder would probably have to. You think he's late first round?
I think his draft range is probably 18 to 24.
Okay, yeah, so mid first round.
Yeah,
to get him, but I think he would fit offensively what the Thunder want to do.
Yeah,
he could fit in really well. Okay, last one. Draft battle number 9. Brandon Pajemski versus Julian Strother.
Ooh. Okay. I hadn't seen a lot of Brandon until the NBA draft combine, and that dude is a bucket.
Yeah.
But I will give the nod to Julian Strother because I think he's more of a natural scorer. He's a little bit bigger, and his time at Gonzaga, I think his mindset playing for Coach Few is kind of built for the NBA.
Yeah.
And not a knock to Brand, although it would be fun to see him and Jalen reunite.
I know.
That would be fun.
There's that dynamic. There's also like the dynamic that the Thunder love that Gonzaga program too.
Right.
And so that's why I kind of picked these two. It's like, okay, there's like some weird like Thunder ties to both these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. No, do you know I do that too? Like I always like, I want certain players to be reunited just for like personal reasons, like, oh
yeah,
they were AAU teammates, and remember that tournament, and that was so fun. Or remember at USA basketball when they did that? And like, I just have this. I mean, I have so many different.
Jalen Williams helped recruit him to Santa Clara, like helped get him to Santa Clara.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess the story was that he was trying to find a place to land, and that J-Dub was like, "Yeah, you come here, like you can get better. Like you can." Yeah. You can get shots here. Like you can get better.
Right.
So
I know. Well, he said in his like media availability at the combine, and I said, I was like, he told all of us, I think there were like 4 of us there. He said, I've been talking to Jalen this entire time. Like he told me what to expect going through this process. And then he said, and he's like, I just want to come here and I want history to repeat itself. And I'm ready to be a lottery pick too. And I'm like, let's just pump the brakes. Pump the brakes a little bit. But like when I had to write a story about like who helped themselves the most, I'm like, I'm just going to take that little quote out of the story. You don't need to acknowledge that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But he was great. He helped himself a lot at the combine.
Yeah. I think he's a super interesting player. Okay. Give me one player in the first round that nobody's talking about that you think has a chance as like pretty big upside that isn't getting as much buzz.
Okay. Guy in the, like a projected first who has upside, who's not getting a lot of buzz. I'm trying to think of like, I filed a mock last night. It should be dropping literally in like minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I think I have Bilal at 12. And then what are the other picks that you guys have?
So they just have 12 in the first round, then they have 37.
Oh, I can't even remember who I said 37. You know who I think is going to have a very, very long, productive NBA career? I'm going to give you 2 players.
Okay.
One, after watching the playoffs, right? And we're seeing the emergence of Cody Martin.
Yeah.
Is it Caleb?
Caleb.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh, twins.
Twins.
I know how productive Caleb's been for the Heat, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is such an amazing story. And so it got me thinking, like, who is going to be Caleb Martin in this draft class? Yeah. And I think it's going to be Jaime Jaquez out of UCLA.
I like Jaime Jaquez a lot. I like him as a player. I also like his look. Yes. I think there's just so much to like about that guy.
Let me tell you something about Jaime. Like I've known him, and this is the craziest part of it. He's not even the best basketball player in his family. His younger sister, who is also now at UCLA, she was one of the first girl basketball players to dunk in Southern California. And she was a McDonald's All-American. She played for Team USA, and now she's at UCLA. So just to get that, like, he's not even the best player in his family,
That's
right?
Awesome. That is so cool.
And so like with Jaime, I mean, I'll just show up, during summer runs in LA, and it's like, people will be like, KP, what are you doing here? I'm like, what? I told you, you will never not see me in your career. Like, stop asking Paul George and Trae Young. Like, you will always see me. Any NBA run I went to, whether it was at UCLA with Rico Hines, whether it was in Santa Monica at this like little high school, it was like a Catholic high school gym, which is, they all play there. I'm like, this is the worst gym I've ever seen in my life. We're in Los Angeles. Why are we here? If it's in the Valley or Long Beach, Jaime showed up to every single, like he chases competition and he wants to get better. So I think he's going to be someone down the road, be like, oh, where was Jaime Jaquez drafted? What, 25? Wow. Look at his productive career. And then another guy who I think that a lot of people are just going to kind of like, okay, somebody else can draft him in case something happens, is Keontae Johnson. Just with how public and everything that happened with his heart condition.
Yeah.
He's been completely cleared by all 3 of the doctors that said, no, he's healthy enough to play potentially 82 games a year. But what he did at Kansas State with a brand new team, they brought in 10 new players, a new coach, and he was very instrumental in their Sweet 16 run. I think he's going to be a very, very successful pro.
Yeah. He's probably like mid-second round because he's a little older. He's like 22 or 23 now.
Yes, he's 22.
Yeah.
Or I think he just had a birthday. I hate that I know all these kids' birthdays. I think he just had a birthday. He did just have a birthday. Yes.
Okay.
I know because I sent a happy birthday, Key.
Yeah. That's awesome. What's his game like? Like, how would he fit in the NBA or like potentially fit with the Thunder?
Okay, well, the one, and this will always, I wrote a story about him leading into the NCAA tournament, and I talked to Mike White, his head coach at Florida, and this will always stick out to me. And 2 things that Mike White said, he's like, the way Keontae, the way he's shooting now at Kansas State, you have to remember when he was told he had to stay off the court, there was one skill set that he honed in on, and that was shooting. And he got to be a much better shooter. And we saw that at Kansas State. I think he shot 42% from 3. And also Mike said, he's like, I remember telling my staff, I said, if Keontae ever plays again, he's going to be a much better player than he was here. And he was. And he walked into a Kansas State team and said, I want to be a Big 12, not player of the year, but I think he was the newcomer of the year for the Big 12. He was on the first team for the Big 12 in one of, I think, the most competitive conferences in college basketball. Yeah. So everything he said, like, I'm going to do this, he did it. And there's a certain drive in players that you have to have. And I think he has it. And, sometimes when the money shows up, players change. I don't think he's going to change because his life was almost taken from him. So he's never going to take the game of basketball for granted anymore. And also 2, he could have gotten a $5.5 million payout to never play professional basketball again and just collect the money. And instead he's like, no, I'm going to bet on myself.
Yeah.
Money doesn't matter to me. I don't care. Like, how many kids are going to pass on $5+ million? Not a lot to bet on yourself. That is, and it wasn't even guaranteed money in terms of like, he could have not even been cleared to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
And here he is. It's like, it's the best story in basketball.
That is really cool. I'm a sucker for a good story.
I'm going to send you the story I wrote on him.
Send it to me. I'm really, really glad you brought that up. That's a really cool story.
Yeah.
KP, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Go check out Krysten. She's got a mock draft. Is it live yet?
Let's see. Hold on. No, not live. Not live yet.
It's going to be live soon.
It's coming up.
As you're listening to this, it may be live. So go check it out at Yahoo Sports. Thanks so much for joining, Krysten.
Hey, anytime.